Welcome to Women Lead, a production of the Women of Color Empowerment Institute. We are your hosts. I'm Michelle Austin Pammies.
I'm Bernadette Norris Weeks.
And I'm Kathy Eggleston. Today, our show is about public defenders and the important role they play in our criminal justice system. These public servants often have heavy caseloads and limited resources. However, they help to protect the fundamental right to a fair trial.
Public defenders are key to our criminal justice system. They represent 80% of the people accused of crimes. In the rush to clear dockets, judges and prosecutors may see defendants as just another number. It is the public defender who must learn the stories behind each person, tell those stories, and infuse the criminal justice system with that humanity.
Our guest today is none other than the elected Broward County Public Defender, Mr. Gordon Weeks. Mr. Weeks will speak with us about the striking disparities that exist within the criminal justice system and what can be done to improve the system.
Yes, our legal system makes it easy to go to jail, but nearly impossible to get the support you need to get out and stay out.
A single arrest can lead to the loss of housing, jobs, children, benefits, and education, disrupting lives for years. Let's talk about public defenders for a second, because when you think about, their role in the judicial system, a lot of people think, well, I don't want a public defender. But one of the things we were talking about earlier today is it's kind of akin to a medical professional who's a specialist in a field, right?
Correct, because the public defender has seen thousands of cases, for example, if you are a criminal defendant. So that gives you some kind of comfort that there is an expertise.
Absolutely.
It's like a physician who has, done 1,000 different open heart surgeries. You feel confident that he knows what he's doing.
And not only that, but they're interfacing with these judges every day. They know the judges and the temperament of these judges and know what the judges are likely to do.
Experience, knowing the judges. So my question is going to be resources. We know
That's right.
how much that plays in our criminal justice system.
You're absolutely right.
They do have a heavy caseload. So their expertise may be extraordinary, but if they're not given the time to work up a case, that could mean that your representation isn't what it should be.
Well, it could mean that you may be entering into a plea that may be premature without the research and the resources that are necessary to thoroughly investigate these issues. And really, this is an issue that comports with our mission, because if our families, if our men, if our children are being stopped by police and families are being disrupted because you have to post bond and all of these other things, these are real serious issues for leadership, because how can you lead with chaos going on around you?
Absolutely. And I mean, we know that we have to make sure that there's forward progress, not toward a legal system in America, but to an actual real justice system.
That's true.
I have to admit, I support Bernadette on the issue of how can you lead with these issues around you, because the truth of it is that we have enough, right? We're carrying the child load, we're carrying the workload, and we need to be able to rely on these police officers keeping our children safe, our families safe. Police reform is not just about arresting police officers. It's about getting them to a point where they are being protective of the community.
Absolutely. Well, we can't wait to hear from our next guest, Gordon Weeks, Broward County's elected public defender. We'll be right back after these messages.
This is James.
Jimmy! Mom, Dad, this is James. Jimmy!
James? James Harrison from Roosevelt High?
Jimmy! Jimmy! Oh! You good, Jimmy?
The 2021 Toyota RAV4.
Jimmy!
The RAV for all of you. Right now, lease a new 2021 Toyota RAV4 LE for just $249 a month for 36 months. Toyota. Let's go places.
At the Women of Color Empowerment Institute, our mission is to enhance and expand leadership by women of color. We do this in a variety of different ways, including but not limited to providing mentorship opportunities for young professionals where we assist in helping to create paths to leadership. We empower women to develop capacities for social change. We produce programs that promote heritage awareness, and we provide training opportunities for business and government. Our institute holds seminars focused on professional success techniques, and we host many other events such as our popular Advocates for Change and Leaders Connect. The Women of Color Empowerment Institute publishes a magazine called Women Lead. Our signature event is the Women of Color Empowerment Conference, a yearly conference where hundreds of leaders gather from all across the United States and beyond. To learn more about membership and how you can support our programs or be a sponsor of the Women Lead TV, visit us at nationalwomenofcolor.com. Again, that's nationalwomenofcolor.com.
The law office of Austin Pammies Norris Weeks Powell is a full-service law firm practicing in the area of governmental law, including the representation of municipalities, civil litigation, personal injury, real estate, and corporate transactional matters. With over 100 years of collective experience, our attorneys are admitted to practice before state courts, federal courts, and the United States Supreme Court. We are conveniently located in downtown Fort Lauderdale and can be reached at 954-768-9770. Or for more information about the law firm of Austin Pammies Norris Weeks Powell, visit our website at apnwlaw.com. That's apnwlaw.com.
Welcome back to Women Lead. We are pleased to have with us Mr. Gordon Weeks. Mr. Weeks is the elected Broward County Public Defender for the 17th Judicial Circuit. He is a graduate of Florida Memorial University. In 1994, he earned his Bachelor of Science in Air Traffic Control and then went on to earn his Juris Doctorate from Nova Southeastern University's Shepherd Broad College of Law. He has shown a particular interest in juveniles and has been instrumental in implementing a civil citation program for first-time nonviolent offenders and a diversionary program. He addresses issues dealing with schoolhouse to jailhouse pipeline, and he has worked to reduce the number of young people entering into the system. There's so much to say about you, Gordon, but let me just say first, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So we understand that you've been a champion in community efforts to address predatory policing, officer misconduct, and criminal justice reform. After the George Floyd murder, the country was with you. The majority of people thought those reforms were essential. But since then, there's been an increase in crime, and people are stepping back and saying maybe we want to go back to the way things were. What can you say to those people?
You know, there's always a balance that you have to strike when it comes to officers and the power that they have on the streets. Officers have immense power. They have the ability to make determinations as to what the facts are. They have the ability to calm the situation down, and they are going to be the first response to make an assessment as to whether someone is suffering from mental illness or actually acting in criminality. One of the things that we have to do is make sure that officers do not abuse that power, you know, and take a situation and escalate it and make it more problematic for those folks that are encountered. Very recently, there was an incident in Sunrise involving an officer that used some significant force with respect to another officer. The community was outraged at that extreme amount of force, placing his hands in a very aggressive manner on another officer. But the real problem with that type of behavior is nothing happened to that officer. If you, I, or anyone else were to engage in that similar conduct, we would have been arrested immediately on the streets. And we have to make sure that we restore confidence in this criminal justice system. You know, as public defenders, we see the disparities. And it's our obligation. I feel that it's more importantly my obligation to make sure that the community is aware of what is going on in the courts.
Let's talk about cash bail system. And the United States is one of the only places in the world really to have this type of system where we use commercial bail bondsmen. And the system discriminates against people of color. We know that, we've seen it, and we're in dire need of reform for that system. Have you given any thought to how, in your position as the public defender, as to how that system can be improved?
But of course, that is one of the most stark examples of disparity in our system. The cash bail system merely says that if you have the money, you can bond out of jail and wait at home until your case comes to trial. And that creates a real disadvantage for the poor, the average citizen that doesn't have access to resources. And as a result, it becomes a get out of jail card based on how much money you have, and that's not fair. So one of the problems with the cash bail system is that, it's embodied in our Constitution. It's bedrocked in our system. So we have to figure out ways to balance that and make it more fair. I am very, very proud to announce that with a lot of help and support of all of the community stakeholders, we have just put forth a new bond system that appreciates the disparities that come with bail. And that came with a lot of discussion with the state attorney, a lot of conversations with the courts and the chief judge. And it also needed support from our sheriff, who handles the individuals when they come into the jail. So when you have these parties for the first time get down and sit in a room and hammer out what is a better way moving forward, we were able to come up with a new bond schedule that was just introduced 2 weeks ago. And we're very proud of that. We're very proud of seeing the ripples that come from that, whether the fairness in our system will start to become a little bit more apparent, where the people will see that access to money and access to resources is not going to set them apart anymore. And I think that's a very important step forward for Broward County. It's the fact that we have a new paradigm in Broward County, a paradigm where we recognize our respective roles. We are very strong advocates for our roles. I respect the role of the state attorney, and I know they have different challenges than I do. And I respect the role of the Constitution officers and the sheriff and that of the chief judge. But having the ability to have a conversation and recognize that we may not agree, but there are places where there are alignment. And in those very quiet places where there's alignment, we need to move forward. I know a lot of folks want reform to happen as quickly as possible, but these things take time.
It makes a difference.
It takes time.
Yes, absolutely.
Especially when we're talking about, unraveling 400 years of oppression that is now embodied in our criminal justice system. It's not easy to make swift moves because there are so many community safety issues that you have to take into consideration. But there are things that can be done, and this bond reform is one of those things. And I'm proud to be a part of that. I am going to watch it very closely to make sure that it doesn't have any unintended consequences. And we will readdress it if it does.
All right, now you had mentioned a little bit earlier the issue of resources. And I'm going to ask you to step back a little bit from your day-to-day role as public defender. The United States has spent billions of dollars on criminal justice, if you will, over the last several decades. Most of that has gone into policing and prisons. We incarcerate more people than any other country in the world. We all want to be safe. But based on your knowledge and experience, what can we and should we be doing to address some of the root causes of crime so that all of these folks never have to touch you and your excellent services?
And that is the most important question and it will be the issue that changes this community. Um, we have looked at criminal justice in a silo, and it's on an island by itself. But we know that education impacts folks' likelihood of coming into the criminal justice system. We know that access to jobs and stable housing accesses or increases the likelihood of folks coming into the system. And if we do not build a society that is rich in not only resources of education, but in healthcare and in jobs and housing, so folks can have a level of stability in a family structure, in a home, then their likelihood of getting involved in the criminal justice system is reduced. You know, we are the last step when all those other things fail. We don't have the incredible resources to identify and support mental health early on. We don't have the resources for substance abuse. You know, for a family that is struggling, trying to keep a roof over their head, having difficulty accessing insurance, and their child is suffering from substance abuse, they need somewhere or some place they can take them to get them services. You know, one of our jobs that people oftentimes forget is, you know, as an attorney, you are an attorney at law, but you're also a counselor at law. And in that role, in that relationship that we have with our clients, you know, we counsel them on the law, on the strengths and weaknesses of their case, how they are going to navigate through the court system. But we also counsel them on how to move their life in a better direction. You know, how to get a job, how to stabilize yourself, how to build a better relationship with your family. You know, those things are the intangibles that are important to moving people in the right direction. And that's the role that we serve as public defenders. I love this job. I love this work. I love the fact that we are entitled public defenders. We're not called client defenders because the work we do in representing each single person represents all in this community. We balance the criminal justice system. We bring that level of conscience and that level of compassion that we need into the system.
So let's explore one of the issues that you raised, mental health. There are so many people in prison who actually are people with mental health problems. And I remember reading something like it's a huge percentage, like 48% or some number like that. So what is your office doing to address that aspect of things, and how are you representing your clients with a mental health problem?
You know, that's an incredibly important question. You know, one of the things that we recognize in our office is that we have some very skilled and talented attorneys. However, we need more. We need more support in the social work aspect of this profession. And we're trying to build out a social worker portion within our office that is going to be able to identify and find resources for those folks that are struggling with mental illness. Mental illness is real. And many of our communities, particularly communities of color, have difficulty embracing the real aspect of mental illness. We want to say, you know, it's just, you know, that kid is bad, or, you know, I'm going to keep on spanking and get them, you know, back and, you know, go in the right direction. But we have to embrace professionals that are going to help our children, help our adults. We have to do better. Law enforcement officers need to be better trained when they respond to a scene to make a distinction. Is this criminality, or is this the manifestation of illness?
I recently read a book called Just Pursuit, and the book did a wonderful job with making us understand how biases operate within the criminal justice system, and particularly with judges. And it gave some examples of how some judges have a high level of impatience with criminal defendants. They are unprofessional they show clear disdain for particularly Black criminal defendants. And I'm wondering, are you training your staff in any way to look at those issues, understand that there are biases, and figure out how to operate around them, quite frankly?
There are so many issues that we have to address, but that is one of the fundamental issues that has existed in our criminal justice from the beginning of time. I was watching the news this morning, and I'm watching this judge sentence the officer and cry as she, or becomes very emotional as she renders the sentence of 2 years. Never once mentions the name of the Black man, the victim, because she has great empathy towards the officer. That is a clear example right now of a judge not acknowledging her biases.
And what do you tell your young attorneys?
You have to recognize it. We have to train attorneys, train professionals that there are implicit biases. We have to compensate for those implicit biases. We have to also place that in the record. We have to challenge those decision makers, challenge those prosecutors, challenge those judges who are acting negatively based on biases.
Now, I want to ask you about some of the realities of managing the office day to day. We hear, obviously, you don't get to choose your clients as private attorneys do. You don't get to choose the amount of caseloads that you have. So how do you manage with the resources that you have to give your clients excellent service, to balance these large caseloads, if there are? Just tell us a little bit about the realities of managing the office. What are the realities of managing your office?
The realities are quite simple. We are the largest criminal defense firm in Broward County. We are the second largest public defender's office in the state of Florida. By the nature of Broward County being a large urban center, we have a lot of cases. One of the things that I thought important was to create a training module. We've coined it and we've named it the Public Defender Academy. And that academy is designed to not only introduce our new attorneys to the fundamental skills training that's needed to be a public defender, but also introduce them to good bedside manner that you have to establish in order to do this job well. Our clients do not get to pick us, and by that nature of establishing a relationship, we have to do extra work to establish trust. And part of our job is to counsel our clients. And I can tell you, some of these conversations were private and in confidence, or you probably shouldn't do this. You probably shouldn't. But I understand your decision to want to do this. And we have to support that decision, even though we may counsel against it. And that is the nature of being an attorney for someone. You give them the advice. You strongly push them in the right direction. But if they ultimately make a decision, you support them. And you may have an incredible motion to suppress. You may have incredible fact pattern for trial. You may have all of the great witnesses that may come in, testify favorably for you. But it's the client's sole decision. And we have to support our clients. We have some very skilled and talented attorneys that I think will take anyone in trial because I've seen them. I know the level of preparation they put into their cases. But when their client tells them they do not want to risk that, we have to respect it. And that is one of the problems that we have. We do not have enough judges. We do not have enough state attorneys. The caseloads are immensely high. We have this system is now responding to the Great Resignation that has washed across this nation, public defenders and state attorneys have resigned and moved on. And not only have they moved on, they've been recruited out of our offices because of their skills.
Is there anything that you can recommend, or do you try to do that as a public defender's office to let people know what interaction they need to have with the police, how to respond to police inquiries, and what happens when a police officer knocks on your door, etc.? What about that interaction can be changed to avoid so many people in the prison system?
You know, that is one of our responsibilities in the office as public defenders and assistant public defenders is to be accessible to the community, to share our experiences with the community, to educate folks on how to avoid finding themselves trapped in the criminal justice system. We've created a speakers bureau where community organizations, schools, principals can reach out to our office to have one of our trained attorneys come out and do a presentation and answer some questions. I've been on a number of forums throughout my career, and I enjoy it. I particularly like speaking to young people because they challenge you with good ideas, and you see the potential of where we're going to be going when you speak to young people, and they get it. And part of what we tell young people is when you interact with the police, you have to understand that that police officer may be just as nervous as you, and you have to embrace that. So don't try to escalate the situation. I know you may not want to say yes sir or yes ma'am, but it probably is better to say yes sir or yes ma'am, because that will de-escalate that officer. When you're in the street, on the basketball court, pulled over in your car to get a traffic ticket, that's not the time to challenge it. We'll challenge that later in court. And that's what we're here for. That's what the public defender's office is here for. Your attorney will deal with those missteps of the law before a judge. But we want your interaction with law enforcement not to be one that's escalated into a position where you are finding yourselves being abused or possibly even dead. We want you to recognize that.
Absolutely. Well, we've learned so much from you. And I will say, just because I have to put it out there, we both get calls about, are you married to Gordon Weeks? And I'm like, no, he's a good friend. And thank you for being on our show today.
I have to say, you do carry the name very well, and I appreciate that.
Well, same here. That's right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you all for joining us today. And until the next time, be empowered.